This all started because Aaron Paul and I, 3 years post Breaking Bad's finish, we happened to be in the same city at the same time, which was rare, and we missed each other. So I said, well, I think it's too early to work together. Yeah, it's too early. Maybe we can do a play or something. Maybe. And then Aaron Paul says, let's create our own mezcal brand. And I said, wow, that is a terrible idea. I don't know anything about spirits business. And by the way, my experience with mezcal was not great, because when I was in high school and college, we used to play poker. And we used to buy a big case of beer and a spirit of something or other. And I remember someone bringing mezcal, and it tasted like carpet cleaner. It was awful. And so when he said, hey, how about mezcal? I immediately went back to my high school, college, and I went, oh. And he said, no, you had a terrible experience. Come with me. So we went to a mezcal bar in New York City. We sat down at the bar and sipped so many different varieties of mezcal that I was completely won over. And so I said, okay, all right, let's go down to Oaxaca. Let's be authentic with this. Let's find something that we both really love. Neither one of us wanted to just put our name on something and say, hey, good luck, hope it works out. We wanted to do something that we can be passionate about and justify the time it takes to invest in them. Mezcal is a beautiful spirit, old spirit. You can do shortcuts in making it, but it's very labor intensive. To prove the old world process, at our palenques, which is the name for the processing plant, there's no electricity. There's no electricity needed to produce this. It was important for Aaron and I to do this right. Our maestro, our mezcalero, Gregorio Velasco, he's been making mezcal since he was 8 years old. We wanted to go with the highest quality. We don't have to do this. We do this because we fell in love with the spirit. We fell in love with the culture and the families and the communities down in Oaxaca, Mexico that make our brand and others around the region. They're beautiful people, hardworking people. So we asked, what is it that the town needs? And collectively they said, well, we could use a new water system. Okay. So Dos Hombres paid for and installed a brand new high-tech water system for this entire community. So not just for making our brand, but also for these people who need clean drinking water. You know, you take for granted the ease of life that we have in America. You really do. And it feels good to be able to say, we're here to help, but they work hard and we want to work hard for them. The espadín takes about 6 years to mature as a plant. The tobola is around 25 years. And it is also a much smaller plant. So the yield from it, it's difficult. You have to find it in the wild. We have a policy there where with every plant is harvested, we replant 2 plants so that we know that our company and other companies can harvest the tobola in the future. On Breaking Bad, I was definitely the senior partner and Aaron Paul was the junior partner. And on Dos Hombres, it's flipped. He really was the spirit behind the spirit. He was the one who had the initial idea, And he spearheaded our social media program, and he's done an incredible amount of work. The chemistry, and that's a pun, that we had on Breaking Bad was very strong. We concur on almost everything. We just happen to, and I think that's why we're close friends, is because we align on so many things. Just the way we want to live, the way we want to work, our sense of competition. And so it just seems to blend just like our spirit itself, it blends well. Aaron and I, from the get, we said, look, I don't want a job. I don't need a job, neither of us. So the only way I would want to get involved in anything is if I can fall in love with something. And we just fell in love with this. So we love the work, but it's not a job. We're like dry sponges. We're so eager. We're learning every step of the way. And it's a fascinating experience.
I think a lot of people who are involved in food and drink kind of end up falling into the world. It's kind of one of those wonderful things that you stumble into while you're doing different study, a different background, and you kind of get bitten by the kind of infectiousness of being around the food and drink world. And it was very much the same for me. I actually originally started in kitchens, so grew up from a kind of household of kind of food and drink. My mum was latterly a pastry chef, and we just grew up using food as this kind of amazing social mechanism, way to get people together, have a great time, and look after the people that you loved. I loved that idea of it, but quickly felt that when I was in a kitchen, I didn't have that connection to the people I kind of wanted to make things for. So my oldest friend kind of, I think quite flippantly at the time, went, well, if you want to chat to people and work with ingredients, but do those two things in harmony, why don't you just go work in a bar? So that was, really very much the origin point of it for me. over 20 years ago, started working in kind of a variety of bars, everything from kind of restaurant bars, fine dining, nightclubs, dive bars, hotels, the lot. I got really excited by kind of traveling around and gaining different little bits of perspective from each of those styles of venue. And then we started out doing the kind of Lion projects about 10 years ago. So Lyaness is a very different kind of space. I mean, obviously it's a super beautiful, it's a very glamorous room, but it's also a bar that does things differently. We really try to push. And that to me is the true sign of hospitality, is being able to guide people out of their comfort zone, take them to something new. And the beauty about stepping into our bars is we have these incredible teams. They're the most amazing thing within the company, and they're there to kind of help guide you to that unexpected place. So I'm going to pass you on to James Wheeler, our general manager, who's going to introduce some of our drinks.
This drink's called the Lo-Fi Hard Shake. It's one of the drinks on the current Lyaness menu, which is the British cookbook menu. Essentially, it's got the backbone of classic whiskey sour. It's based on Compass Box Artist Blend whiskey, a coconut kefir, and then it's got the backbone of a classic whiskey sour. So it's got your egg white and it's got your citrus, and then the malt and grass Amazaki is really going to sort of pull out those fruity notes from the whiskey. Abbott's bitters, which are sort of woody spiced Angostura bitters. And the garnish is going to be a butternut squash cracker. This drink is called the Blood Brown Derby. It is a twist on a classic Brown Derby cocktail. We're using our blood curacao to really sort of push the spiced sort of richness of this drink. So one of the sort of garnish elements of this drink is the vessel. So something a little bit light-hearted and fun. Splash of grapefruit juice, a splash of lime juice. And then just a super classic grapefruit and mint on the garnish.
The feeling of having the best bar in the world is, it's an unbelievable thing, but it's also not something that we would ever kind of rest on our laurels about. It's a lovely validation, because I think a lot of the work that we're trying to do is to push the boundaries. I've always been excited by, what are the arenas, what's that fringe in the space that food and drink gets to operate, and So to see that recognized in the awards that we've been very fortunate to pick up have been amazing. It's an amazing validation, but it's also kind of, I suppose, a little bit of a boost to us to kind of keep pushing on in those things. So it's something that we see as kind of a responsibility to kind of use well. You know, how can we continue to inspire? And that's everything from kind of young bartenders. It's exciting people to kind of come into this industry of food and drink. It's our peers, it's our guests, and it's ourselves. How do we then continue to push? How do we make sure that we're using that as an opportunity to connect, do things differently, to educate, and to find new ways of working? So it's an unbelievable feeling, and it's something that I'm so incredibly proud of. You know, the team have worked so hard, and there are so many people that have supported us to be able to get to that milestone. But to me, it's kind of just another opportunity and a pivot point to be able to then kind of build up into kind of the future.
Therapy is the #1 reason why I've become a better human with my friends. Outside of the business world, when I'm in the business world, I understand humans, I listen more, I actually take the time to understand. It's a game changer. Our company is Midday Squares. We created the first functional chocolate bar. We basically took a chocolate bar that meets a protein bar and gets rid of the junk that's in protein bars. We focused on people that are working, people that want something cleaner, don't want high sugar, don't want palm oil, want clean ingredients, and still want that indulgence from chocolate. I'm actually allergic to my product, which is whack. But chocolate is a $140 billion industry every year, and I felt like it hasn't been disrupted over the last 50 years. It's been the same companies dominating it. So when we had this like runway where we realized that there was this pull for the market, we realized that, wow, we could actually potentially become a new age chocolate conglomerate. My title is Chief Rainmaker, and why it's called that is because I make the chocolate rain, but not actually. I bring in a bunch of different relationships, whether that be investors, buyers, retail buyers, journalists, to the network, but I do it in a very interesting way. Instead of doing it so corporate, which a lot of people treat relationships like, I make friends first and then do business later. And when my sales team needs something, they call me, they're like, I need this buyer from XYZ company. I'll make sure I build a relationship with that person and then bring them to them. When we started, my sister, my brother-in-law and I, my partnership, we agreed to seeing a therapist every single week. So once a week at minimum, in good or bad times, and we are committed, and we have gone every week since last 4 years. And I think that that's built us as very strong communicators and leaders, and to work and understand human behavior. Me and my sister, we're close. Like, you know, you don't want to ruin that relationship, but yet you still need to know when to have those hard conversations with our criticism or things like that, where it's not coming from my sister, it's coming from my business partner. I've worked really hard on myself for that reason, and then, you know, making sure that I also know where my partners are at all times in life. Like, are they going through a downtime? Are they on an uptime? Do I not bring something up to them because I understand the context? We have signs like peace signs or something on the heart where I know how someone's feeling before I could bring something up. That has actually allowed us to set ourselves apart, to understand, have empathy, like things that a lot of leaders in today's world I think need more of. We focused on that, and now we bring some of our teammates into it, so it creates a culture that's extremely different where the human is the priority, people first, then everything else. We've raised to date 17.5 million private, and then about 4 million from government. So the government has lent us to build our factory. Everything else, 17.5 has come from growth capital. So from venture funds in the US. Our year 1, we did about $1 million in sales. Year 2, we grew to about 3. Year 3, we did about 9. And then this year, we're likely to close at about 17 to 18. Our fundraising journey has been a lot easier, I would say, than our peers in the space. And the reason why I say that is because we show everything on social media, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook. And the idea behind that is to show the transparency of who we are as a company and what we're doing. So whether that's hardships, so failures we've had, or huge successes, or in the middle of stuff, that gives the investor the know who we are. So they already know who we are when we meet. So they're like, we love you or hate you, one or the other. And that's allowed us to get in touch with all types of investors from different industries and then choose who we want as investors. I think that has challenged the CPG world to kind of take storytelling to a very different level and basically guide it where it's no longer about, okay, just the product features of the product. Let's talk about how it's vegan, gluten-free, soy-free, non-GMO. That's great, that should be table stakes. But now you're talking about, okay, this is who the company is. That's where the consumer feels, wow, I could become a fan rather than just a customer. I'm excited to show the world that you can continue to win at whatever you're doing, whether you're a pilot, you own a chocolate company, by being yourself. I think if we continue to follow our gut every single day and stay true to that and keep winning, then we can inspire the next generation to go out and do the same thing and stay true and be proud of who you are. Find your superpower, who is yourself, and embrace it and engage it. And I think that that's what I'm most proud of to date, and I hope I can continue that.
My name is Rhiannon Enlow. In the city of New Orleans, I'm a working bartender, also an amateur booze historian, and I do tour guiding as well, where I talk about the city of New Orleans through a lens of food and beverage history. When you think about cocktail history in the United States as a large umbrella, you've got these great classics that came out of the United States, but they don't all tend to be attached to particular cities. Whereas New Orleans has many classic cocktails that we still love and celebrate today that we know for a fact were invented here. People come to New Orleans and you're checking those drinks off a list just like you're checking off, jambalaya and gumbo and boudin. You're checking off all of these things as a visitor. Now, when you go to other cities, I don't think that checking off a drink is the first thing in their mind. They're gonna go to a museum and they might seek out like one specific dish. When you come to New Orleans, you're eating and drinking, you're seeking out music, and you're admiring the architecture. New Orleans is super unique to me because it is this wonderful mix of our sort of European influence from the times of French and Spanish governance, but also the incredible number of people who came here from the Caribbean, as well as West Africa, and all of the people that kind of made this sort of international dynamic cultural mixture that became sort of influential in the way that we eat and drink. And honestly, because of the mix of all these different cultural influences, we've developed a very relaxed relationship with alcohol. It doesn't mean that everyone here wanted to drink all the time. It just meant that we were comfortable with cocktails and wines and mixed drinks. And we used them as devices and methods in order to continue a cultural dialogue in a mixture of people talking to each other in bars and restaurants, and using the way that we celebrate different festivities throughout the year, kind of having unique drinking traditions based around the different cultural celebrations that we have. Now it's kind of created a little bit of a bubble that New Orleans is it's like its own distinctive culture, but it's only that because we were always mixed with all these fantastic and fabulous influences. So, we're sitting in the French Quarter right now, but the French Quarter was also governed by the Spanish, but it was predominantly built by people of Caribbean descent, and then we had Irish and Italian immigrants, and all of these components tell the story of our city in a way that I think kind of gets lost when people come to visit and they're just like, I'm going to New Orleans. I know it's gonna be fun and I know it's gonna be weird, but I wanna remind them that we are unique because of our history of all these different people mixing together. I owe a lot of my career to being here in New Orleans and having Tales of the Cocktail be present. So I was a cocktail apprentice the very first year that program existed, and developed friendships that I still have to this very day. Tales being in New Orleans really sort of solidifies in my heart that this is a cocktail drinking capital of the United States and honestly of the world. And to have so many thousands of people from all over the world come here to celebrate the industry, to share knowledge, to build friendships and relationships, but more importantly, to see the city that I love, it means the world.
I'm Bryan Cranston. I'm at the Carousel Bar at the Monteleone Hotel here in New Orleans, Louisiana. It revolves as you sit down. It's the only one like it in the world. And to get in here, I had to climb over the bar. I've had to climb out of bars before, but not over bars. All right, I'm gonna make a drink with my mezcal dos Hombres for you. Very simple. It's called the Cranstonian. Now, Aaron Paul gives me all kind of grief saying, that's so egotistical. And I go, wait. I'm not naming it after me. I'm naming it because the mix in it is cranberry juice. Maybe a little bit was, but okay. Anyway, we'll go 1 full part of Dos Hombres in, and we'll go full part of cranberry juice in. Then we get some Aperol and do half of that. I'll just pour half here, right about there. And half of fresh squeeze lime juice. Please try to get the fresh squeeze. I know it's a kind of a hassle, but it tastes so much better in a cocktail. Take some ice, put some ice in there, pop it into here, and then shake it up. I like to give it a nice, vigorous shake. When it gets too cold to hold, that's when I know, okay, time to go. Take a rock glass and a fresh lime and just give it a little rim here of the juice, and then you can dip it in your salt. I also like to put in like a spice, like a tahini, and mix it in with your salt so it has a little bit of, all right? Usually I like to do like 1 big rock, but this is good. And then look how pretty that is. There you go. And that, along with our lime, is ready to go. Here's the Cranstonian. Drink to good health. Cheers.
Arnauds is one of the old line restaurants in New Orleans. We've been here since 1918 when we were founded by Arnaud Cazeneuve. He was a Frenchman that had come over to America after a failed attempt at being a doctor, and he made his way from France to New York and ended up down here in New Orleans. He was involved in the spirits and champagne business as a salesman, and he came down here, fell in love with New Orleans, as many people often do, and he found that his passion was food and beverage and opened up a restaurant after working in several restaurants around town. So my family has been here since 1976. I am the 2nd generation of the 2nd family to own and operate the restaurant, which has been continuously operating since 1918. My father originally was in the hotel business, and by the time that he had taken over the restaurant, it had really fallen on hard times. Arnaud Cazeneuve's daughter was running the restaurant. It really required a major renovation, sort of restoring the restaurant back to its former glory. My sister and I have taken over. My father passed away about 14 years ago or so now. And I think the plan was always to have us be part of the restaurant. You know, we grew up here. It's part of our shared history. So here we are all these years later. One of the things that is unique about Arnaud's is our founder and his daughter were very involved in Mardi Gras in New Orleans. And a lot of people, when they think about Mardi Gras, they think about the street party and the parades and things like that. But there really is a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of behind the scenes Mardi Gras balls, which are these large extravagant parties that are in many cases invite only. And so people don't get to see that. Arnaud Cazeneuve and his daughter Germaine were very active in those Mardi Gras circles. So we have a lot of their costumes that have been preserved and have been put on display, where people can get an idea of what was going on, you know, sort of behind the scenes of Mardi Gras, if you will. Arnaud's is sort of a flag bearer of those times, where it's about the full experience of coming in, setting aside all of your worries and concerns, and just enjoying a fabulous meal and experience.
My name is Chris Montero. I'm the general manager and executive chef of the Napoleon House Bar and Restaurant. The Napoleon House is many things. It is an iconic, old, historic bar and restaurant that features wonderful local cuisine, heavily influenced by our Italian heritage here in New Orleans. But it's also just as famous for being a small historic bar where we feature Pim's Cups cocktails. Allegedly, Uncle Joe, Giuseppe Impastato, the gentleman who originally created the bar and restaurant in the early 1900s, was not fond of high alcoholic beverages. He liked wine and approved of beer, but he thought that whiskey was a little unsophisticated. So he was familiar with a drink in London that was very popular, he being an immigrant from Italy, virtually unknown in the States, right, at this time, and thought it was a perfect cocktail because it's light and refreshing, and in England it's sold in the summertime. What a perfect drink to introduce to this city and this climate. It took off. The restaurant is famous for a particular sandwich that's well known here in New Orleans called the muffaletta. We are a casual eatery, popular with locals and many, many tourists, that features those things. The Napoleon House is not just a bar and a restaurant, right? It's a very significant historic entity. The building itself dates back over 225 years. Its origins were with the first elected mayor to the city of New Orleans, a French expatriate by the name of Nicolas Giraud. Here in New Orleans, we pronounce it Girard. The room we're sitting in now is the original apartment of Mayor Nicolas Giraud that dates back to 1812. The Napoleon House legend is a little more romantic folklore. After the Battle of New Orleans, Mayor Girard was associated loosely with Napoleon Bonaparte in France, and a bunch of other circumstantial evidence caused the locals here in the city, the local French Creoles, after Napoleon was exiled to the island of St. Helena, to start to speculate the reason that Mayor Girard was adding these wonderful embellishments to this apartment in the French Quarter was obviously he was going to team with Jean Lafitte and Dominique You, our famous pirates here in the city of that era, and rescue Napoleon and offer him this building as a place of refuge for the rest of his life. And then at the height of that rumor in the city, Napoleon Bonaparte died in exile in 1821. Within 2 years of his death, virtually everyone in the city of New Orleans referred to this building as the Napoleon House. As for my involvement with the Napoleon House Bar and Restaurant, I am a long-time employee of the Ralph Brennan Restaurant Group. Many years transpired when we had an opportunity to become involved with the Napoleon House Bar and Restaurant, which was owned by one family at this point for 102 years. And this family, the Impastatos, reached out to Ralph Brennan in early 2015 and asked would we be interested in taking over their family legacy, the iconic Napoleon House, which we're all very familiar with in this industry. And Ralph didn't hesitate, said he would love to. One of the first calls he made was to me, being a long-term employee, and wanted to know if I'd be interested in managing and running the Napoleon House restaurant. I immediately said yes. The Napoleon House has always been a popular bar and restaurant from the day we were here, and that's never been a problem, attracting guests to come to our bar and our restaurant downstairs.